On today's episode, we're going to talk all about copywriting, aka the text on your website. And I'm super excited to dive into this with you. So if you've been wondering about copywriting, this is an episode for you. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. As you all know, Jane is the sponsor for the Up in My Business podcast. Jane is an all-in-one practice management software with helpful features like online booking, admin scheduling, integrated payments, and charting. But there's more to Jane than you may think, and it's also the best. And if you've been on my podcast or listening to my podcast, you know how much I love Jane. The team at Jane cares a lot about the problems that you face as a practitioner, and one of those problems is the prevalence of no-shows and late cancellations in your practice. So they've made it super easy for you with a few simple tools that are built right into Jane. That includes the ability to implement an online booking payment policy, send out unlimited text and email reminders. There's a bajillion options for those. They're the best. And enabling waitlist management features to fill those last-minute gaps that weren't preventable. It literally sends automated text to your people on the wait list. It's the best. So come see Jane in action at jane.app. And if you know that you're ready to sign up for Jane or want to give Jane a shot, you can use my code LEX1MO for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Welcome back to another episode of Up in My Business. I am so excited to be recording this episode for you today. We are going to talk all about website copywriting and copy editing, etc. When we talk about copywriting, I know people get confused with we're copywriting something, as in like we're owning the content, we're doing like a copywriting legal thing. But when I talk about copywriting, all we're talking about is the content that's on your website. So we're going to dive into that today. But as you all know, it's always, a thing that I do here. I start off with some life updates, some business updates, and then we'll dive into the content. So if you don't care about the life and business updates, feel free to skip ahead. I don't know when it's going to be that the content starts, but you do your thing. If you want to hear all about the life updates and the business updates, then let's chat. So life updates, I told you I'd give you an update on Moose and her grooming. So she had to get shaved, mostly because her hair was just so matted. Now, I expected this because, yes, I brush her. Yes, I'm not a bad dog parent. But however, we traveled across the country. It's a little bit difficult. I've been, like I said, in between 3 different moves at this point. So it's been difficult. It's also been hard with the salt water and just getting used to it's different here, like as far as like the environment goes. So her hair has been just like not great. We're trying to figure out a way to keep it nice and brushed out, obviously, but it's just difficult with the moisture in the air, etc. So anyway, she had to get shaved down. But the good news is I actually talked to the grooming people. We did a mobile groomer and highly recommend the mobile groomer thing. It was so nice. They came right to the driveway. They groomed her here and then I brought her inside. But anyway, so I talked to her and I was like, what's the deal with the summer coat and the winter coat and all the things? And on our walks, she's been super hot. Like I can tell she's hot. And I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, we take all of her hair off and just have a really, really short cut for the summer because it's hot anyway. And it's honestly been working out really well. And if we want to bring her to the beach at this point, like getting the sand out is not going to be difficult. So I don't know. I get it. I understand like they're a long-haired dog. They should have long, nice hair. But this shortcut has been so good for her because she's not hot on walks anymore. It's just been great. I really, really love it. So anyway, she just looks a little funny because she's so skinny. And the vet says that she's healthy, but I digress. It's just difficult because they say she's healthy. We try to get her to eat. She eats when she's hungry. There's food in the bowl all day, but we're not going to get into dog health at this point, but she's doing well. Haircut looks funny, good. Her legs are super skinny. It's adorable. So that's an update on Moose, update on life. Haven't really publicly announced a big life change that's coming up in the next week and a half. Not going to announce it today, but you will see things coming up on Instagram if you follow me there. About a week and a half away, like I said. So super exciting time, to be honest. Just very exciting time. Very pumped about what's going to go down in the next week and a half. So I hate being the person who's like, I'll tell you later, or like, can we have a meeting? And someone says it to me and I'm like, I'm going to think about having this meeting for the next 3 days. So can you just have the meeting right now? Like, I don't really want to talk about the meeting that we're going to have later. But anyway, you will see this if you follow me on Instagram. If not, then I might have it in my newsletter if you're signed up for that. If not, then I will probably talk about it on the podcast in a couple weeks. But I have to batch record a couple episodes. So I will be recording a couple episodes, I believe, this upcoming week, just so that they're done. But yeah, so big life things coming up, if you will, in the next week and a half. So stay tuned for that. Volleyball is going really well. My thumb has been bothering me for reasons that I won't get into, but I just like have been having a lot of thumb pain, so I'm trying to take care of that. My knee has been weird because I've switched shoes. So I never wanted to have Birkenstocks. Like, people who are listening to this and who followed me on Instagram back in, like, I don't know, January, I had gotten Birkenstocks and I was like, I never want to wear these just because they look, I'm used to Vivos. So I'm used to barefoot shoes. I walk around barefoot. When I was treating, I never wore shoes. I always had socks on. And if I were to wear something like a Nike shoe, I always had knee pain by the end of the day. So when I got Birkenstocks, I was like, this is going to be bad. I just know my knees are going to hurt, or my knee is going to hurt, always my right knee. But lo and behold, they ended up being really comfortable. I really liked them, but my Birkenstock tan, after wearing them on the beach and long beach walks and just outside walking every day instead of sneakers, my Birkenstock tan is ridiculous. So I said to myself, I'm going to buy some new sandals. So I got some rainbow sandals. I think they're really big at the beach. So my friends from Delaware have them, or my friends' family from Delaware have them. A lot of people here in California have them. But anyway, I got some rainbow sandals. They're great, but I found myself walking really weird when I was wearing them. And I just I honestly felt like I was having a lot of I was honestly caving in on my midfoot. So not going to get into the PT terms here, but I just felt like my ankle was just not doing well. And when you look at my shoe, you can tell that I'm on the inside of my heel. So didn't really think much of it, but then the inside of my knee started hurting, and then now I treated it with red light, which is great. Then the front of my knee started hurting today, and I feel okay, like I am feeling okay, but I am watching that at this point. So flip-flops without arch support seem to be bothering my feet now, even though I prefer to be barefoot. So anyway, the foot update you didn't ask for, there it is, but working through that as well. Other than that, really no big life updates. The Moopert updates are continuing to be posted on Instagram. We got very close today, meaning like their faces got very close. Rupert is tolerating Moose as far as like being in the same room or being in the same space or close to her. But they're still not friends. Like they don't hang out together. Moose is still separated just because she's so curious and definitely high energy. So I think she scares Rupert, and Rupert just doesn't want anything to really do with her. And she's big compared to him. She's big. So it's one of those things where we kind of really have to, just wait. It's a waiting game, but, the life update coming up in the next week and a half might solve that problem. We'll see. No, we're not getting another cat, and no, we're not getting another dog. So please don't think that will never happen. But anyway, we'll see. I just want them to get along. I mean, in my mind, I'm picturing them like riding off into the sunset, like Rupert on Moose's back. Like that's my like wish. But anyway, well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So let's talk about business updates, just because that's really all I have for life. Business updates. I have, let me count here, 1, 2, 3 things. I have 3 things to talk about. So my first thing is opening up seats for Done For You SEO for brick and mortar businesses. Currently, I know that I will have 1 seat in September. I do not know if I will have a second. It's up in the air. I know last week I said I will have 1. And on Instagram, I had mentioned 1. It's solid 1 maybe 2, but that will be a 3-month thing. So I won't have another opening for 3 months. So get on the interest list for the Done For You SEO if you're interested for brick and mortar businesses. I also want to mention, so Shantae and I talked about our joint coaching program, our business coaching and tech implementation. We're going to put everything together, make it a really, really awesome experience. You can get on the wait list for that, and we have talked a lot about this, and we have not released specific details, but the one detail that we are going to start saying is that it's going to be super exclusive. So we're looking for 5 people. And I honestly, I said to her, I was like, I hate the posts where people are like, I'm looking for 5 people who want to change their life. That's not what we're asking for. We just want this to be a very, very exclusive experience. So we're doing 5 people, and that's realistically what we have room for anyway. So this will be a very, very exclusive opportunity, and it will be a 6-month thing. So we're going to open it up 5 people for 6 months, and then we'll see what happens. If it ends up being an extension, cool. If we end up opening it up again and having 5 more people, great. But we are only doing 5 people. So if you're interested or remotely interested in working with both Shantae and I for a joint coaching program for business coaching and tech implementation, I highly suggest getting on the wait list for that, because we will send out information to the wait list first. And we have a decent number of people on that wait list. So we want to make sure that if you're interested, you get that email. So get on that wait list if you're not there already and you're interested. Third thing I have for you is SEO School. So SEO School is my everything you possibly could need to know about SEO, so that you can either do your own SEO for the rest of forever, or you know what SEO is and everything about SEO so that you can hire someone to do it for you and actually understand the lingo and know what they're doing for you, etc. So my SEO School is going to open in November. So I did the survey for the wait list. I asked November or January start, and November won by a landslide. So I think there was only 2 or 3 people who preferred to do January. But the good news is, if you prefer to do January, you can just buy in November and then start the content in January. Like, that's no sweat at all. So the start date will be in November. So the registration period will be like the last 2 weeks of October. I'm thinking that the first week of November will be the official quote unquote start day. And then our first live call will probably be the end of November. I'm deciding if I want to do one in the beginning as well. So really trying to figure out the sweet spot there for calls. But once again, my SEO School is it's a DIY, so you're doing all the modules yourself, and then I do coaching support every single month. So it's an hour to an hour and a half long call each month for SEO support. And those calls, if you show up, you get I'm going to call it free, quote unquote, coaching. So if you have a question about SEO, if you have a question about your website, if you have a question about what you're doing for SEO, those calls are invaluable. Like, they are the best. People get really, really good questions answered. And it's literally just coaching at that point. So you're getting the content on your own at your own pace. And then you come to the calls, Q&A calls, and we essentially rock it out with all the questions and demos and all the things. So those calls are amazing. I really, really love hosting them. They're really fun. And people walk away with really, really good outcomes because they're able to actually ask personal questions. So SEO School will start in November. I will also shamelessly promote Shantae's Instagram intensive on this, because a couple people reached out to me after, I think it was 2 episodes ago, and I forgot to talk about it last week. The Instagram intensive is starting in September, and I have no shame saying it, because people ask me for social media management. And until you know how to manage your own social media, I have a firm belief that you should not be hiring out for someone else to do it. So if you're looking for how to do business on Instagram and how to actually utilize Instagram for your business, the Instagram intensive is definitely where you should be. I'll put the link to the waitlist in the show notes. But people ask on discovery calls and in my discovery call forms all the time. So if you are someone who is listening to this and you want social media help, I say help with like quotes around it, because it's really just like the ultimate business coaching experience. Yes, you learn how to post. Yes, you learn how to do all these things, but you realistically learn how to use Instagram for your business. So if you're one of those people, get on the wait list, because I'll see you at every single call. I do moderate the calls still. So we're on round 14, I believe. Yeah, round 14. So it's great. And if you're looking for business coaching for Instagram, that is the place to be. So get on that wait list. Like I said, I shamelessly promote it all the time just because I know how good it is. And I'm there. Like I see the whole thing, and people ask all the time for social media management. And it genuinely just makes me feel a certain type of way, because I really don't think you should hire out for that until you really understand what you're doing and how you're using it. So that's the Instagram intensive. That's all I got for you. So those are my business updates. I know it was a little bit longer. The intro's a little bit longer here, but now we are going to jump into copywriting or writing copy for your website. So I have a whole layout in front of me. I don't typically record like this. I do have like a general layout, but for this specific episode, I do have a lot of things written down because I don't want to forget some little things that I feel are super important. So I'm going to go down this list and we're just going to chat about copy. So when we talk, I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again, copy and copywriting for your website, that is just writing the text that goes on your website. So the text that's on your homepage, your about page, your services page, that's what we're talking about when I say copy. Okay. So when we talk about copy for your website, a lot of people will tell me it's really fucking hard. And I'm like, yes, it's hard. It's a very difficult experience. Like I know that writing copy for your website is not easy. I did it. I've done it for multiple websites, and it's not the easiest thing. It's not supposed to be easy, but it is one of those experiences that's worth its weight in gold if you do it. And I think that, and I'm going to get into what I put on Threads because I really want to say it on the podcast as well, because if you don't follow me on Threads, or if you're not on Instagram, or you're not looking, you don't see my posts, I know that not everyone sees everything. What I had said there is exactly what I feel like is important when it comes to copy. So I understand that people feel, and one of the things people say all the time is that they don't want to get it wrong. Like they don't want to get their copy wrong and put the wrong thing on their site. They don't want it to be copy that pushes people away. They don't want to struggle as they write the copy. And they feel like, a lot of people will tell me they feel like they shouldn't be struggling as much as they are to write the copy. And like, I hear you. I 110% hear you. It is a difficult experience. I don't want to say it's not. 100% is. And what I had said on Threads, because I thought about this for a couple weeks and I didn't know how to put it together into a post on Instagram and also now a podcast, because I don't want people to feel as if I'm, how do I want to say this? I'm not invalidating your feelings. I know that it's difficult, and I am not the person who's going to say, I really wish you wouldn't feel that way, or I think it's easy, so you should think it's easy. That's totally not where I stand on this. I know that this is a difficult thing, and I know that writing copy for your website takes a lot of time, and people, when they start to take a lot of time writing it, I feel like they think they're failing. And I don't want you to feel that way, but I am also validating that you can feel that way. That is totally, totally normal. So let's talk about just going into copy and what I had said on Threads. So on Threads, I had said, writing the first draft of your website copy is one of the smartest moves you can make in your business. Doing this allows you to figure out how to convey who you are and what you do, as well as communicate and relate with your ideal client in your voice. If you aren't able to do that, we've got a bigger issue to address. Writing website copy is not easy, and it's time consuming, I know. That's why people shell out $20,000 plus to have someone else do it for them. Embrace it. Outsourcing that first draft is not the way. So I acknowledge that I like copy editing. So I am a person who will edit copy. I don't want to write your copy. I am full blown. I can edit like crazy, but I really, really want someone to write their copy first, not because I don't want to do it, but because I truly believe that you should be able to write your own copy, and you should be able to do the first draft by yourself. You are the person who knows your business the best. So I want that for you, and I want you to be able to do that on your own. So anyway, that's what I said on Threads, because I truly have a passion for the fact that people should be writing exactly what's on their website themselves. And I do feel like it's one of those things where if you're not doing it, you're not getting the same experience, and it's not helping you to have someone else write it for you. It's just not helpful. It's helpful because it saves you time, but in the end, what is that person saying about your business? Could you say it better, right? So let's dive in. The first thing I'm going to say is that this is where people get tripped up on writing copy, and what I see over and over again and why they get tripped up. The first thing I see and the biggest trip up is that people look at other people's websites. So the worst thing, and I was thinking about, should I say this or should I not say this? One of the worst things that you can do is look at someone else's website when you're writing copy. It's kind of like when you are told that you need to write a story or you need to come up with an answer to a question, especially like a creative writing question, and you look at someone else's paper and you see what they write, you can't get that thought out of your head. You cannot remove it from your head. If you've had this happen before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll have a prompt and you will have not thought anything about this prompt. You'll see someone else's paper and you'll say, damn it, now I can't think about anything else except for that. So I strongly recommend, or do not recommend, looking at someone else's website, and I strongly recommend keeping your eyes on your own paper when it comes to writing your website copy. There's no reason to go look at someone else's website when you're going to write your copy. You don't want it to be the same as them anyway. And I'm going to get to number 4 here in a minute, or number 5. But the thing is like we can't do it because you're just going to get stuck in the comparisonitis phase and be like, I want to sound like them because their website's good. I get it, but it's just going to influence your writing. So you know what? I just thought of this as I'm talking. It's like going into an eval. When you go into an eval and you've looked at someone's MRI, now this is me saying as a PT, I understand the importance of someone having an MRI. I understand there are real changes that you can see on an MRI that we need to know about. I get it. But it's like going into an evaluation and you see a previous PT's notes or you see MRI notes, whatever it may be, and you do your evaluation, but you're influenced by what you've already seen. So it can influence your exam results, right? So oftentimes, especially when I was treating, if there were MRI results or whatever, I would use them to confirm what I found. I would not look at them and use my exam to confirm the results that they had in an MRI or whatever it may be. So it's just the same idea there. So you don't want to go into a website project and writing your copy, having someone else's copy in your head. So it's best to have a clear slate here. So don't look at other people's websites. 2, people try to sound really professional. And that's the word that they use. They want to sound professional. I got news for you. Professional oftentimes sounds sterile, and that's not fun. So a lot of people, I understand that there are people who need to sound professional. But there is a fine line between professional, which is like, I can sound professional and also include my voice, right? And how I talk on the website without sounding like a hospital system, right? So there are 2 different ways to do that. And that's where people get stuck. They're never adding in their brand voice and they're not standing out. They're not trying to stand out. Anybody can write about ankle pain the way that the hospital writes about ankle pain and how they treat ankle pain. The way that you're going to write about ankle pain should also include your voice. And that's what I say on this podcast all the time is you need to include your voice in your copy, on your website, all the things. That's where your voice needs to be everywhere because that's how you're going to attract your ideal client. So the biggest mistake people can make and where they get tripped up is they're trying to sound so professional instead of letting loose and saying, I don't really say that in the clinic. I say X, Y, and Z instead. Like you might not say the words back pain. You might say something else like you don't never say, but you might say lumbar instead of back. It's a really bad example. I understand. But you might say something different than what I say. And you would be like, Lex, why would you ever have that on your website? Cool. Don't put it on yours. Right. So make sure your voice is in your website copy because that's how you're going to stand out. The third thing is people are like, I don't know what to write. I hear you. And I'm going to give you a solution for that shortly. But people just think, I don't know what to write. I sit down and write my website copy and I have no idea where to start. I get it. Stay tuned. And number 4 is people sit down to write their copy for their site. And the first thing or the second thing they really think about if they don't know where to start is they don't want to exclude people with their copy. They want to be inclusive of every single thing they possibly treat, every single potential patient that could come across their website. They always, always, always want to make sure that they're not excluding people on their website. So that's another, I don't want to say mistake, but that's just another concern people have and where they end up getting tripped up when they're going to write their copy. So let's do a brief intro into why writing your own copy is important, because I had said writing your first draft is important. I have people that read second drafts. Emma Jack is one of them. I do that as well. We read the drafts that you have built and then we edit them. That's different than writing it completely. So when it comes to copy editing, that's the second draft. We're talking about this first draft, why it's important to write your first draft. Even if you're a bad writer, it's not about being a bad writer, and I'll get into that. But anyway, so why it's important to write your own copy. You're learning how to communicate your story, your services, and the results that you get in your own voice. You do it all the time, even though you don't notice it potentially. You are doing this in the clinic. You are capable of doing it. And if you're already doing it in the clinic, there's no reason why you cannot do this for your services on your website as well. It also allows you to attract your ideal client. So when you're talking on your website, you should be talking to your ideal client. And I will tell you how to do this shortly. Like I said, I'm going to give you some solutions. You should be talking to your ideal client and talking in the words that they use, because that's how you're going to get people in your door that you really want to treat. Now, people will also say, and I'm just going to tell you a story real quick. When you write to these people, you're going to have people that call your clinic and they're going to say, do I fit here? Like, I'm not sure if I fit here based on what I'm reading. And then you're going to have to say, yes, of course I can treat you. So for an example, the clinic that I used to own, really, really athletic copy and photos and talking to athletes on the website. People who may just be interested in lifting light weights at their house. They might be like a runner that might not feel like they're a quote unquote athlete or not call themselves an athlete. Before they would book a discovery call, or when they would book a discovery call, they would ask, am I athletic enough to come to this practice? Just because the copy on the website spoke to athletes. So it's very easy to speak to your ideal client on your website, and people will still ask, like, do I belong here? Are we sure I belong here? Should I actually come see you guys? Like, you're talking to athletes and I don't see myself as an athlete. So people will still ask you that. So you are trying to attract your ideal client with the website copy that you're putting on there. If you're putting on super, super sterile copy, you're probably not going to attract the people that you want to work with. If you want to work with really fun people, you better put some fun copy on your website. That just is what it is. People see, and you can probably think of a brand who does that in your head. If you think hard enough, there's probably some website you visited that has language on the site that you're like, man, this person seems like a fun person. I would love to hang out with them. And I would love to get treated by them, because what you're doing, you're spending time with people. They don't want to spend time with someone who seems really boring. And I get it. Like, I totally get that. Me neither. So you're able to speak to your ideal client by writing your copy, because you know who your ideal client is and you know how they're talking. 2, SEO benefits, really quick on this, but you're going to be using keywords that apply to your people. So if you're working with athletes, you're going to talk about athletes. If you're working with runners, you're going to talk about running. So just SEO benefits in general, because you're using keywords that apply to your people. You also learn how to talk about what you do. So by doing research, you'll know how your people talk about what you do as well. So knowing what you do for people and how other people view what you do is super valuable. And you're able to communicate what you're doing in a different way. So when I say that I'm improving ankle range of motion to someone, no one's going to care. I don't care that you're improving my ankle range of motion. I care that I can run again. So when you're thinking, when you do the things that I talk about next in my how to do this section of this podcast episode, you're going to say, awesome, like this seems so much easier because I'm already being given the words that I should use. So you do learn how to talk about what you do. This will help you on your discovery calls, especially. I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that like they don't know how to host a discovery call that will lead to an eval being booked. One of the biggest things that people do, I don't want to say wrong, but they're just not optimizing, is the fact that they are not using the words that clients use with them. So they're just talking about the things that people might not necessarily relate to or care about. And if you just flip the script a little bit and use the words that they're already saying to you, you might relate to them a little bit easier. So you do learn how to talk about what you do when you write your own copy. It also allows you to sort through what's important and what's not important. And it is an exercise of learning how to be clear and concise. So when you're talking about something that you do, like dry needling, let's just say, you're able to quickly determine what's important and what's not important to talk about. It's probably not important to talk about the procedure of dry needling. Like, no one cares about the procedure of dry needling. You can put it in an FAQ if you want, but on your website, no one cares that you're going to insert a small filament needle into the muscle and you're going to do whatever procedure you do. Like, no one cares. They just care about what the outcome is from that procedure. So it really is an exercise of learning, like, how can I be clear and concise when it comes to talking about the services that I do? Number 6, why writing your copy is important, because you got to stop plagiarizing. So people will hand in copy and it's in like different colors, different fonts, different sizes. And I'm like, did you like copy and paste this from other people's sites? Once again, going back to don't look at other people's websites. But 2, like, stop plagiarizing. If there is website copy on someone else's website, that's their copy. If you're copying and pasting that, 1, it's terrible for SEO because it's going to have the same word layout as someone else's site, and then Google's going to determine who's more important. And if you have a new website, you're going to lose. But anyway, typically. You're plagiarizing. Like, you're blatantly taking copy from other people's websites. You shouldn't be doing that. It's the same thing as when we were in school. Like, you can't just grab other people's copy and put it on your site. It's not smart. So don't do that. Don't do that. Stop looking at other people's websites to begin with, but also you're plagiarizing. So don't do that. And that's why it's important to write your own copy and without looking at someone else's website first, because once again, you're getting that idea in like an eval, and you're going in with your exam and then confirming with the results that may have been given prior or not. So let's talk about how to do this, because this is like the tactical part of this. And this is in like a weird, when I record right now, I'm recording on Shantae's computer and I don't know what minute I'm at. So it's at like a bar. I don't know how to change GarageBand to like a time on this. So I have no idea what time I'm at. But anyway, we're good. So let's talk about how to do it. So number 1, download my website planning guide. I'm going to link it in the show notes. Download that. It goes through how to write your about page, your homepage, your services pages. It goes through how to write that. So please download that. Number 2, if you need a website and you don't have a template of mine, you can use a template of mine. My website templates, they go through exactly what you should be putting on each section of the website. So that makes it incredibly easy. If you do have a template of mine, you've probably had this experience already. And like I said, start with that website planning guide. If you don't have a template or if you already have an existing website, it can help you do that. 3, go through my ideal client exercise. Once again, we'll link it in the show notes. You need to understand that, like I said before, if you're not speaking to someone, you're speaking to no one. So you need to have an idea of who you're speaking to before you start writing website copy. You can't just be writing to any Gen Pop person without someone in mind. And I always tell people, like, think about the patient that if they were to come in as the very last patient of your day, you would be super pumped to treat them. And like, that's where I always tell people to land. And that's the person you're probably going to want to talk to. So if that is obvious, if you're treating an injury that you want to treat or whatever pathology you're wanting to treat, if they're a runner and you want to treat runners, you get what I mean. So think about that person and you're going to write to that person on your website. So do my ideal client exercise. Number 4, already talked about this. Do not look at other people's websites first. Don't do it. Stray away from it. Just sit down to write your copy without looking at other websites first. How do they describe dry needling? How do they describe therapeutic exercise? Once again, don't call it therapeutic exercise, that's for certain. But how do they describe this, right? So don't look at other people's websites. Number 5, use words that your ideal client uses. The way to do this and the way to figure out, are you doing this? Look at their intake forms and their subjective reports. They will tell you what they call the things that you're doing, and they will tell you how you're helping them. So look at those descriptions that they're using when they come into your clinic, and you will have all the words that you need to have to write your website copy, because they're going to tell you what you did for them. You just need to listen and then put that on your site. 2, look at your testimonials. That will tell you how you've helped people in the past and how they use words to describe your services. Number 3, ask them. Ask them how they would describe what you do and what you helped them with. That can be a question on like an exit survey, or it can be in person. You can just say, hey, if you had to describe how we work together in a couple words or a couple sentences, what would you say I helped you with? And what did I help you get back to? How would you describe us working together? What did I help you do that you couldn't do prior? You can ask people that. People like to be asked that. And then you can just write that out. It's not a testimonial per se. It's just prompts, if you will, to then go put on your website. Because if one person is saying it, another person is probably saying it as well, or wants to feel that way, right? So that's a result. You've gotten someone. So if someone is feeling that way now, there is likely someone else who wants that same result. Number 6, when you actually go to write, and this is like a process, if you will, you need to start by just writing your first draft and writing everything you can think of. Split things into topics, split it into different services. I go through that in my website planning guide, but you just need to write, like have the word vomit. You should include diagnoses and things that folks often hear, right? So as well as the symptoms they have. So an example of that is if you're talking about pelvic pain, right? Or if you're talking about prolapse is a good one. So if you're talking about prolapse, they hear prolapse, but they also think about pelvic heaviness. So you should include both of those words in your website copy when you're going to write it. So include the diagnoses, but also include the symptoms that they describe as well. You should mention specific populations and people that you work with. So if you work with CrossFit athletes, talk about CrossFit athletes. If you work with runners, talk about runners. So mention those specific populations that you work with when you want to work with them. Notice how all of these are going back to that ideal client exercise and having an ideal client and figuring out like, who do I actually want to work with? Anyway, you know that. You've already heard it. Number 4, when you're writing, split things up. So you write your first draft, you really spill everything out, everything you want to get down, go back and start splitting things up. Don't have run-on sentences. Keep things clear and concise. So take out words that you don't need. Take out sentences you don't need. Have bullet points and numbered lists. If you're going through your copy and you see you have pelvic pain, diastasis, pregnancy, think about how you can split that up into a bulleted list instead of a run-on sentence with a bunch of commas in it. Okay? Easier to read for the human and just better overall. When you proofread, read it out loud. That's one of the things that I think people don't do enough of. You should be reading your copy out loud because it's so easy to just skip over words that don't actually say what you think they say. So make sure you're reading your copy out loud when you're going to edit it for that second run. Number 6, ask someone who is unfamiliar with what you do to read your copy. That's super helpful for people because they can tell you like, this does not make sense, or this does make sense, or I think this doesn't really sound right. I don't know what you mean by this. And then you can adjust the words. So asking someone who's unfamiliar with what you do to read your copy. Now, to wrap this up, because I know I've been talking for quite some time now, we are going to go through just my quick little rundown, if you will, of the summary points. So number 1, understand that folks will go to your website to make sure that they can relate to you and that you are the person for them. In order to do that, you need to give them data by writing copy that clearly illustrates exactly what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and the outcome that they can get from working with you. That's the purpose of your website. Tell them who you are. Tell them who you work with. Do you work with them? And they're going to say, cool, they work with me. Or, oh, that looks like I'm not the person for them. Tell them how you do it and what results you can get them when they work with you. Okay. Number 2, keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't look at other people's websites. It's not a comparison game. It's not like I want to have the same website as this person. You don't need to adjust your copy to sound like someone else. You never need to do that. It's your copy. It's your website. It's your business. So don't adjust your copy to sound like someone else. And the easiest way to do that is to keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't go to other people's websites when you go to write. Number 3, proofread and refine on your second and third drafts. So you have to proofread, make sure everything's spelled correctly, make sure you say what you want to say, make sure things make sense, make sure it's spelled right. Proofread and then refine. Make sure you have those lists. If you don't, create lists. Don't have big text walls. Having 2 to 3 sentences per paragraph is where you're ideally sitting. Proofread, refine, make it easy to read. Number 4, and this is the most important one, is it can always change. Your website is not set in stone. You can change your copy tomorrow if you finish it today. it can always change. So the first draft is not the last draft. So never fear. Your copy is not this solid thing. Unless you're putting it on a t-shirt, like, you're fine. You can change it whenever you want. So understand that it can always change. It's not a set in stone thing. So with all that being said, that's what I got for you on website copy and why it's really important to write your own copy. And I hope if you have struggled with writing copy, you feel validated. It's very difficult. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time. So there's never any judgment on my end of like, oh my God, you're taking 3 weeks to write your copy. I get it. 110%. Hopefully those how to do it tactical tips will help you with that. But there is no judgment here. It is a difficult process, but it is so, so worth it. So if you're not writing your own website copy, highly recommend it. If you haven't looked back at your website copy in a couple years or a couple months, I highly suggest you do that as well. And just go back and rewrite things, change things up, make things sound better, add words, take the words out, etc. So I invite you to try that as well. So let me know if you have any questions about this. This is obviously a topic that I'm very passionate about. You can tell because I'm talking so fast. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. So all the business updates, you'll see all the lists and all the wait lists that I talked about in the show notes. You'll see all the links for these helpful resources in the show notes as well. And please reach out with questions. You can contact me by email. You can DM me on Instagram. Please, if you have the time to write a review for the podcast, I'd truly appreciate it. You can leave stars or you can type a review out. I genuinely would love to have typed reviews. It's just, I love reading them. It is the best to read them. And I would just love to read them. And I would love to know what you're thinking. And the stars are super helpful because it's nice. And someone gave me a 1-star review and like, I hope they stopped listening. But anyway, the stars are really, really helpful, but knowing what you're liking about it is super, super helpful for me because then I can adjust accordingly or keep it the same. So if you're loving it, please let me know. Would truly appreciate it. And that's all I got for you. I truly appreciate you listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you next time.